So you want to drive the UltraShift LHP? Well, that's why we're here. Over the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at the components you'll be using, proper startup, selecting a starting gear, normal driving operations, and proper shutdown procedures. We'll also answer some of the most frequently asked questions we receive at the end of this program. And what we don't cover in this video, you'll find detailed in your driver's instruction manual. In fact, we recommend you read through the manual before you drive the UltraShift, just to be sure you're thoroughly familiar with what you've got working for you. So, let's get started. There are two key UltraShift components in the cab: a shifter to select different operating modes, and the gear display, which will display the gear you're in and the gear you're moving to. The gear display is also used to alert the driver when clutch abuse is being detected. We'll go over what to do if this is observed later in the program. Eaton offers two shifters, a lever and a push-button panel. Regardless of the configuration, the shifter has 5 modes: reverse, neutral, drive, manual, and low. There are also up and down buttons, which we'll discuss in a few minutes, and a service light which may alert you in the event of a potential transmission problem or service need. Different OEMs may provide their own shifters and gear displays, but their functions are the same. If you're not using Eaton design components, just be sure to refer to your vehicle manual for instructions on the location and use of your components. Now, let's take UltraShift out on the road. As with any vehicle, be sure to use proper safety procedures. Buckle up and be sure the parking or spring brake is set. You also want to be sure the shifter is in neutral, and I'll tell you why that's especially important in a few minutes. Next, turn the key to the on position. At power up, UltraShift will go through a self-test. Now you'll notice that the service light comes on and goes off, and the gear display shows a solid in, indicating that the UltraShift LHP has registered that you're in neutral. If the service light remains lit or the gear display shows a dash, UltraShift has not confirmed neutral. Now if UltraShift is not confirmed neutral, the engine will not start. We'll go over what to do in that case a little later in the program. Assuming you've achieved normal power-up, a solid N on the gear display, just start the engine. The process of selecting the starting gear is the same, whether you select reverse, drive, manual, or low mode. First, apply your service brakes. Applying the service brakes allows UltraShift to register brake input. Now this is important because if UltraShift doesn't register brake input, you won't be able to get into your initial starting gear. Now, select a mode and release the vehicle parking brakes. The gear display will flash the gear you're going to. Once the gear is engaged, it will stop flashing and become a solid display. If you selected drive or manual, you'll be able to select different starting gears using the up and down buttons, depending on how your vehicle is programmed. It's important to choose a starting gear that's appropriate for the load and grade conditions. Excessive clutch slippage creates heat, which is detrimental to clutch life. In other words, the starting gear should be the same as the gear you'd choose using a manual transmission. It's also very important to understand that the UltraShift transmission is not intended to provide hill hold capability. The service brake should be used to stop and hold the vehicle on an incline. To prevent the vehicle from rolling when starting on an incline, place both feet on the brake pedal before sliding the right foot to the throttle pedal. Gradually back off the brake while applying as little throttle as necessary to move along the incline. You'll also want to keep in mind that if you select your own starting gear, UltraShift will remember and continue to use that starting gear in drive or manual until you choose another starting gear or until you shut down the unit. When your gear display is solid with the gear you want, slowly release the service brakes and apply the accelerator, and you're on your way. If you selected drive, UltraShift will automatically upshift or downshift, unless, conditions permitting, you decide to manually override the system and shift with the up and down arrows. During the shifts, the gear display will flash the gear you're going to. And when you're in gear, the display will become solid. One note: in drive, UltraShift will adapt to the changing conditions of the vehicle, but right after power-up or after changing loads, UltraShift needs to learn the new conditions. While learning, it may hold a gear instead of upshifting. Simply push the up button to start the upshift. It may take 3 or 4 shifts for UltraShift to learn the new conditions. After that, it'll perform upshifts and downshifts automatically. Also, when coasting to a stop in the lower gears, UltraShift won't finish downshifting until the driver gets back on the throttle or the vehicle is nearly stopped. This is normal for the UltraShift. Let's take a look at manual mode. When manual is selected, whether you're moving or at a stop, UltraShift doesn't shift under normal conditions, unless you use the up and down buttons on the shifter. In other words, as you accelerate and decelerate, press the up or down button to request a shift. If a shift can't be completed due to engine RPM and road speed, the shifter will signal a tone, telling you that it can't complete the requested shift. Just like manual, low mode can be selected at any speed or at a stop. If you selected low gear from a stop, the UltraShift will engage and maintain the lowest gear possible. Selecting low while moving, when driving down long grades or coming to a stop, will optimize engine braking by initiating downshifts at higher RPMs and, under normal conditions, inhibiting upshifts. Now, let's recap this information. Remember that any of your modes, drive, manual, or low, can be selected at any speed or from a stop. So if you started out in low and want to upshift, simply select manual and use the buttons to shift, or select drive and let UltraShift shift automatically. If you're in drive and want to take over the shifting, use the up or down buttons to shift. Let's move on to reverse mode. When using reverse, first remember to select the proper reverse gear for your load and conditions. Some models have multiple reverse gears, so we suggest you refer to your driver's manual for information on the number of reverse gears available for your transmission model. You should also keep in mind that in order to engage a reverse gear, you should be at a stop or moving at less than 2 miles per hour. Selecting reverse from neutral will engage low reverse, and an R1 will appear on the gear display. Just as with drive, manual, or low, the gear display will flash the gear you're going to. Once the gear is engaged, it will become a solid display. If conditions require a different reverse ratio, you can use your up and down buttons to engage your other reverse gears. Now, let's talk about clutch protection. As mentioned earlier, the UltraShift LHP transmission is not intended to provide hill hold capability. The service brake should be used to stop and hold the vehicle on an incline. If the system detects the clutch is being overheated, a warning tone will sound and the gear display will flash a C, then an A, followed by the selected gear position. The alarm will continue until the clutch system cools, the throttle is released, or the clutch is fully engaged. If one of these is not done and the clutch heat continues to rise, the launch quality may be adversely affected and the clutch may be damaged. Regardless of whether you're shutting down the vehicle or parked with the engine idling, be sure to select neutral. Verify the display as a solid in. Be sure this is a solid neutral. Then, set the parking brake and turn off the key. One note: after the key is turned off, you may hear the transmission making shifting noises for about 20 seconds. This is the normal calibration routine for UltraShift. That's it. That's all you need to know to drive the UltraShift. If you still have questions, as we've said, there's a short question and answer segment at the end of this program. We recommend that you watch the Q&A segment and that you read your driver instruction manual before driving the UltraShift LHP. Not only will it give you useful tips, but it will walk you step by step through each of the procedures we've discussed here, as well as a number of others, including basic maintenance, troubleshooting, PTO operation, and diagnostics. As always, if you need more information, contact your Roadranger service network at 1-800-826-4357. That's 1-800-826-HELP. Even though driving the UltraShift is pretty straightforward, we get a lot of questions about special conditions. So, let's take them one at a time.
Question: what are the best conditions for using manual and low modes?
Well, manual mode should be used whenever you want to select the gear instead of letting UltraShift select it for you. For example, when you're moving around the yard and on some grade conditions. We recommend you use low mode anytime you want to maximize engine braking and minimize the use of the brake pedal. For example, when driving down long grades or when coming to a stop.
Question: what should I do if my service light comes on?
Well, during power up, the service light will come on and go off. This is normal operation. But if your service light comes on and stays on, or comes on while driving, it means that UltraShift has detected a fault. You'll want to get to a service facility as soon as possible. We also recommend that you note the driving conditions when the fault occurred in order to help the repair facility diagnose the problem. For instance, was it hot or cold? Wet or dry? Were you traveling on a grade or over flat terrain? You should also note any change in available gears after the fault occurred. If UltraShift detects a fault, in some cases it's possible to reset the system in order to drive to a service center. To give it a try, first select in, neutral, then shut the vehicle down for at least 2 minutes. Now this full power down may be enough to get you to a service facility. For more detailed information on diagnosing faults, refer to your driver's instruction manual.
Question: does UltraShift allow skip shifting?
When conditions permit, the LHP will automatically skip shift. You can also manually skip shift by selecting manual mode and pushing the up button more than once.
Question: how does UltraShift work with cruise control?
UltraShift is totally compatible with cruise control. If a shift is required while cruise control is active, UltraShift will temporarily interrupt cruise while the shift is performed, and then automatically re-engage cruise when the shift is complete.
Question: why does the engine brake occasionally come on during a shift?
Depending on the conditions, UltraShift can activate the engine brake in order to bring the engine down faster for an upshift. This can happen even if the engine brake dash switch is off.
Question: what if I shut the truck off while the transmission is in gear?
As we explained in the shutdown procedure, it's very important to select neutral before shutting the truck off. If the truck is shut down or stalls in gear, UltraShift may become locked in gear. Then, the transmission will attempt to get to neutral during the next power-up if the shifter is in neutral. If neutral is achieved, a solid in appears on the display. But if neutral can't be achieved, a dash will appear on the display and the engine won't start. If a dash appears during power-up and the lever is in neutral, here's what you do. First, turn the key to off and let the transmission power down for at least 2 minutes. Then, depress the brake pedal and release the parking brake. Make sure the shifter is in neutral. Now, turn the key to the on position. UltraShift will attempt to shift into neutral once you turn the key on, but you may have to slightly release the brake pedal to help let the torque off the drive line. Once it reaches neutral, a solid in will appear on your gear display and the truck will start. If a dash still appears after this procedure, the transmission cannot confirm neutral, and you'll need to get the vehicle to a service center. Well, we've covered some of the most frequently asked questions, but if we didn't answer your question, check your driver's manual. Again, it has detailed information on the procedures we've outlined here. As always, if you need more information or support, contact your Roadranger service network at 1-800-826-HELP. That's 1-800-826-HELP.